be a hit for people to go do his dirty work to grab phones and stuff. So he's the big target. It's caused a lot of problems in New York City, and hopefully we'll grab him. We get some headway in this.
First of all, thanks a lot, guys. Listen, we saw what happened on the video, and there are 172,000 migrants, asylum seekers who are here. Overwhelmingly, many are here just want the same thing all of our families want. For those who think they're going to come to our country, break our laws, assault our cops, that was not only an assault on an individual, that was an assault on our system of public safety. They're going to use organized methods to commit crimes. This can't happen, and it won't happen. Not in New York City. I'm the mayor of the city, or while you're in this police department. This is not about the migrants and asylum seekers. It's about those who break the law. Doesn't matter where you're from and where you came from. You break the law, you're going to feel the full weight of this department. So let's go get these guys.
We're here in the location in the Bronx. The gun violence team, along with the grand larceny team, just conducted a search warrant here. Migrants preying on vulnerable New Yorkers in New York City. Pattern 156. Over 60 victims committing crimes as robberies, grand larcenies, purse snatches. Guess what? This department, this agency is not going to tolerate that. We will find you. Anyone that commits any act of harm against one of our New Yorkers, we're going to find you, we're going to arrest you, we're going to bring you to justice.
Folks, this is a lot worse than what they're reporting. Let's discuss what the real deal is, right here on The Reading Room.
It doesn't matter if a person is a migrant, asylum seeker, or if the person is a long-term New Yorker. You break the law, it would be investigated, and it would be handled by our criminal justice system. The police department has a job to do apprehensions. The prosecutor has a job to prosecute, and the federal government has a job to determine if a person is here as a migrant or asylum seeker, should determine if they're found guilty and they do their time, they should be deported.
So let me tell you what's happening right now. This is PR damage control because the Senate, Chuck Schumer from New York, had released his emergency border crisis bill, which right now the whole entire country is slamming it to bits because it does not take care of the American people. After this situation of these migrants beating up the cops, and then you have $53 million as pocket money being given to these illegals coming in, New York is rightfully so upset. And then on top of that, you have this bill in which Kathy Beaverface Hochul, who is the governor of New York, puts forward this statement encouraging those in the House majority to step up and publicly support the compromise, which is no compromise for this bill. This woman doesn't have a clue, or she does have a clue and doesn't care about what's happening in New York, which so many of us see through it. And New Yorkers were calling her out on Twitter, like one here saying you're lying, and the people of New York see through that. Take a hard look in the mirror and ask yourself if this is the person you want to be. I don't think she really cares. Sure, you've got some political recognition, but is it really worth selling out your own country? That indeed. Kathy Hochul serves the Biden administration and does whatever the administration tells her without pushing back. This Twitter user says, New York is in debt, using illegal immigration to support corporations and robbing law-abiding tax-paying citizens of their wealth. That being said, federal support for foreign wars will add to the U.S. tax bill. Replacement theory in action. That's how we all feel. I mean, we are working so hard for our money. In fact, in New York is one of the highest tax brackets or regions in the whole country. So it is defeating, it is frustrating, it is maddening to see a good chunk of the pennies I make from YouTube going over to give to these people who haven't contributed anything to this community. Nothing. These people have taken such a strain on the healthcare system. If you want to get an appointment, you have to wait now. Also, the streets are less safe because they had to cut back on police funding. I mean, all this money going to the migrants, but there's no support or help for the residents, even though the city declared that they have a crisis at the moment. And what I am the most angry about now, and I hope Americans speak up about this, is that this forced migration by the United Nations, funding and helping support get these migrants over here to cause havoc in our country and disrupt the system, is not allowing any type of aid or helping Americans who are now feeling displaced. So today I reached out to the division, and here's what I wrote to UNHCR. Hello. How can I apply for cash assistance to help with being displaced in New York City? I am a female who is being internally displaced as a result of the rise in gang crime and rapes from illegal aliens in my neighborhood of Times Square. Women are getting assaulted and police are getting attacked. I fear for my life when walking out on the street alone. I need monetary support to be able to travel safely to the grocery store to buy food to survive and require additional money for cabs as the subway in Times Square is riddled with illegal activity and violence of these undocumented people. I'm going to need financial help from UNHCR to move to another place to live as a result of this forced migration being facilitated by the United Nations. Please advise on how to apply for assistance, as this UNHCR program says it is for anyone who is categorized as vulnerable and in conditions that are threatening. There is no assistance for New York residents or homeless people from the U.S. government to help its own people, despite it being declared a humanitarian crisis. I qualify under the charter conditions of UNHCR and expect to be given the same protection as all the other foreign people who are currently being given in the United States per the mission of UNHCR. Please advise the process for approval. Thank you. Here is the automated reply that they give back. Thank you for contacting the UNHCR multi-country office in Washington, D.C. And now in bold, our office receives a high number of requests that unfortunately cannot be answered individually. As a result, we are only able to prioritize responses to congressional offices, attorneys, and in select other cases. So in other words, I am not going to get a response back unless I hire a lawyer, which is ridiculous, or I find some congressman to raise the issue and blow this out of the water. I think it's so important that we bring a spotlight to this because the United Nations helps every country in the world except for Americans. We are the largest funders of this NGO. It's not even a government entity. Nobody elected them into office, but we are the largest funders. And they won't even help us? What is that? And there is no way for any of us, if we wanted to contact somebody here in the United States to talk about getting the same type of relief that some of these migrants here are getting as far as cash assistance, money that came from us in the first place, to be given to us to help. There are reports of rape, there's reports of attacks, there's reports of people stealing. I don't feel comfortable anymore as a female. And according to UNHCR, women are protected or supposed to be protected and considered vulnerable. And now I'm in a situation where I'm being internally displaced by these people who have invaded our country. It's not right that we are not allowed to take advantage of the same funds that we have contributed into, if that makes sense. And I hope that many people share this video or at least raise the topic that the UN should also be helping the people of the United States. It's unacceptable to not have a resource to contact the UN when they're helping everybody in the world except for us, the people who are suffering.
This morning, during the execution of the warrant, we are going to go into the particulars of that, on what was recovered and what this pattern is all about. We believe the individuals involved have been involved in 62 robbery incidents across our city, including our transit system, including riding on mopeds, scooters, and snatching property of New Yorkers, such as iPhones and wallets. These individuals do not have a license to steal in our city. Mopeds and scooters are being used for crimes and harming innocent people. And I want to be clear, again, the law is coming for those who use mopeds illegally. That is why we have been cracking down on the illegal use of mopeds. And last week, we looked at some of the locations where a large volume of mopeds were located. It was given the appearance by those who felt as though this was some type of retaliatory action. No, it wasn't. To date, the NYPD seized more than 2,500 illegal mopeds and scooters in 2023, a 74% increase over 2022. While these 5 individuals are migrants, I want to reiterate the overwhelming number of 170 plus thousand migrants and asylum seekers are attempting to continue their next leg of their journey of pursuing the American dream. But those who commit a crime will be treated like any other criminal in this city. No different mindset, no different reactions, or no different response from the police department.
But that's so stupid. Sure, New York police are going to be wasting their time bringing migrants to holding cell and then releasing them 24 hours later. And then they don't even get deported because then, according to Mayor Adams, the federal government will take over and decide whether or not they'll be deported. What's the point if Mayorkas is not deporting anyone? Enough with the politics. This press conference is just for PR facade management. Like, you're not really addressing the issue, which is getting rid of the dangerous people. You're just releasing them back into the environment and letting the federal government decide what to do with them when clearly they're not doing their job. New York is not stupid, and I guarantee the rest of the states are not stupid once they find out what's in that bill and how it's going to affect every single state here. And of course, it's my Senator Chuck Schumer from New York who's trying to push this bill through, wanting to give so much money to foreign countries and only a fraction of it for Homeland Security. Let's take a look at the highlights of this 300-plus page national security supplemental package for $118 billion. Now, when you hear that title, you think, oh, well, $118 billion to be spent on America itself. Let's see what they're going to do to help the people. Wrong. $60 billion to support Ukraine. Another $14 billion to support Israel, which, by the way, Israel is not in debt. Next, $2.4 billion to support operations overseas in that conflict that was started in the Red Sea. $10 billion more to provide humanitarian assistance for people in Gaza. Who's to say that that assistance is going to end up getting to the people in Gaza? More assistance to the Ukraine. Okay, so far, nothing for the American people. $4.83 billion to support key regional partners in the Indo-Pacific and deter aggression by the Chinese government. Oh, you mean give money now to Taiwan? Okay. $2.3 billion to continue support for who? Ukrainians? Oh, I almost thought that said Americans. Never mind. $2.3 billion to support Ukrainians displaced by Putin's war. But here in America, you have Americans now being displaced and can't get assistance. Okay, next. The bipartisan border policy changes negotiated by, oh, that's right. That's the 5,000 migrants per day. And, maybe 8,500 will cap it, but that's at the discretion of the president. So we know that we're going to be pulling in over 2 million more people that are going to be feeding and sucking off of the American taxpayers' back. Great. Oh, they are giving some money to America. $20 billion going to the trader Mayorkas so I could hire more people to process paperwork and go buy sandwiches for these migrants. Man, American taxpayer dollars working hard for us. Then they have something, the Fentanyl Eradication Narcotics Deterrence Off Fentanyl Act, whatever that may be. We all know that that's not going to be enforced under this administration. And then a cool $400 million to give to nonprofits and churches or religious institutions to protect with security. These nonprofits are using this money to help facilitate this invasion. I can't stress anymore how bad this is. Like, if anybody signs this deal or agrees to it, you have blood on your hands, as well as we know that you are somehow profiting and benefiting from this, because we all know where all this money is. Somebody is making a killing off of it. Certainly not the American people, but somebody is taking our tax dollars and getting rich off of it. And that's what I see going on here. There's no other explanation for why all this money is being stolen from the American people to not help the American people, but to help others, unless there is some type of ROI coming back to the very same people who are in Washington. It's no wonder why these Democrats had held this bill for so long until the 11th hour to now rush it through before Congress shuts down, before they go on vacation. This is why they took forever to release it for anybody to see it, because of how bad it is. And all those dummies out there who are going to scream and holler that, oh, it's really the Republicans' fault because now they have a deal and they're refusing to put it in place because this is political. No, it's not. This is bad. Why put in a bad bill and half-ass the situation and make it worse than hold back and do nothing? I mean, at this moment in time, they put that bill in. We're doomed. We're done. What really shines through in this bill is the selfishness of the politicians that put it together. So Chuck Schumer, who is a Democrat of New York, you need to resign. When you know that there are Americans that are hurting, particularly in Maui, as well as Ohio, and no relief has been given to them, but foreigners are being prioritized, that's a problem. In addition, we have all these children that are being trafficked, and there is a clause in here that does skirt over actually doing the due diligence to help these kids. That's also a problem. And then you realize that perhaps maybe they understand what is going on and do not want to disrupt this avenue of money that's coming in from this human trafficking. America should be mad that this administration is stealing the American dream from its own people by taking our money and wasting it. In fact, it's criminal because there are people profiting from it. You know that this is all intentional, and when Joe Biden came into office, he dismantled what was working instead of building off of it to make it better. This is what he did with our tax money.
What was uncovered today in any other time and place would have been a huge scandal, but in Washington, unfortunately, it's business as usual. Here's what happened. So under President Trump, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of border wall was purchased. It was there, being constructed. Joe Biden comes in and pays, get this, $130,000 a day for contractors not to construct the wall. On top of that, then, when they got political heat for it, guess what happened? They sold this off to contractors in an auction. In one example, $4.4 million worth of materials were sold for just over $100,000. That's a 96% plus discount. Taxpayers, this is insult to injury to taxpayers. Not only do we have an open border because of it, but they got screwed financially.
So now here is the beauty of having this community, as I know that I can depend on you to help get this information out because it's information that no one is talking about. So while we're negotiating all these billions of dollars to be given away to everyone and their mother except for Americans, what we have to realize and call out is that in 2023, the Office or Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration have developed a framework agreement with UNHCR. Now get this, folks. As of January 2023, UNHCR is counting for over 100 million individuals worldwide who are on the move. That include the refugees, the asylum seekers, those that are being forcibly displaced. I guess you can't count Americans because we're not entitled to any of this help. But this is what they're seeing as a result of the man-made crises that these very same people, the people at the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, are all causing. And the U.S. is gladly working within that framework in which certain funds are being given to support the NGOs who are facilitating this migration and move, which, a lot of these people, as we have seen, are not coming here fleeing persecution or asylum. They're here to make money and live off of the welfare system. But hey, they're being told what to say in order to make sure that they have their self firmly planted here. I'll be honest, if you call yourself a Democrat, shame on you because you're supporting socialism, communism, and Marxism. This is what the Democrat Party has turned into, and we are under a threat. And quite frankly, I don't care if people are offended that I'm calling Democrats now communists and socialists because that's what they've become. It makes you kind of wonder when you look at the people who are part of this facilitation. So you have Alejandro Mayorkas, who is of Cuban descent. You have also this woman, Julieta Valnoyes, who is also of Cuban descent, at the head of the Population, Refugees, and Migration. And the one who signed this agreement is supportive of this forced migration and flood of immigrants coming to the United States. I certainly hope that they're not thinking that 100 million people are going to be coming here and that we're going to absorb them. Because if that's the thought process, then I think we need to be ringing all kinds of alarm bells at this moment. It does say the agreement's from 2023 to 2025. And I'm sure that that count of 100 million includes the Palestinians that are left in Gaza. So you know what that means. So when you look at the International Organization for Migration, which is not even a part of the UN, this is another entity that is trying to sell the story on how appealing migration is and why it needs to happen, working hand in hand with the UN. In some ways, I feel like this is another shady organization that is undermining our country. They set out this map showing where they have presence, as you can see here, and where they operate. Now, if you notice, the countries that are all lit up in dark blue are the countries where all these people are shifting and moving and coming from. So they are operating in these countries to give out support and maps and all sorts of guidance on how to get to America or the UK or Australia. For the most part, it's America. What's funny is with all this data analysis that they have on all these countries and movement of people, they have no data on the United States and what's happening with the people here in this country. It's almost like that's the end state. They're cleaning third world countries to dump it in the United States. Because if you notice, the countries that are rich in resources, like South America and Africa, is where most of the people are being driven out of. So the question becomes, all right, if everyone is fleeing from persecution and tough life and yada yada, so the question becomes, what happens to the evil people when they're left with nobody in their government? You know, when you look at Africa, let's say they force majority of the population out and into whether it be the UK or the United States or Australia to run us into the ground. Then what? Does that mean that they're going to come follow suit to, control? Because you need people to rule over, in a sense, right? You can't operate a government if there's nobody there. Or is the intention to clean out the resource-rich land of where all these third world people are staying and dumping them in the United States, making that the hellhole of the world? It feels like it, in my opinion. And it does seem like China or wealthy billionaires are going to then take over the land, which what we're seeing with a lot of this green colonialism in preservation and making money off of that. Like, help me understand what the plan is. Like, why can't they allow a program where they try and keep people in their territory and enrich the community to better the environment? Or why is it that China is not absorbing some of these people? They have more land than the United States. And I'm semi-joking with that question. I think we all know why. China would never tolerate this shit. In fact, like when you look at all the human rights abuses, as well as the impact that they have on the earth, like they're the worst offenders, but they're not being held to these stupid SDG, let's fuck up the world goals, according to the UN. This whole operation is corrupt from start to finish, in my opinion. I'm going to leave you with this last clip to give you something to think about.
You want to talk about a real tragedy? It's right here in the canal zone of Panama City. This whole facility used to be controlled by the U.S. government. It was a military base to protect the Panama Canal. Jimmy Carter gave it away, and now it's basically been taken over by the United Nations and NGOs. One of those right here, OIM, Organization of International Migration. They're the same organization that were handing out condoms and birth control to illegal aliens before they came over the Darien Gap into Panama. Rather than saying, stop, don't do it, they said, here's some condoms, here's some birth control for when you get raped on the way. That's how disgusting these organizations are. They pretend to be good, and all they're doing is feeding on human misery. And this entire facility here, almost every single building here now is either United Nations operation. You've got UNICEF on the other side of this building. You've got the UNHCR Now they have 2 buildings. That's the refugee side of the United Nations. They've got 2 buildings because they've had to expand. They got too big for this. And on top of that, you even have the Clinton Foundation out here. These organizations need to be defunded and they need to be investigated for trafficking. They are part of what the cartel's doing. You can't just blame the cartel. These organizations have to come down too. Not another dime of taxpayer dollars should go to the United Nations, and in particular, not to OIM. While they're sitting here living in luxury, they're inviting people to put their lives at risk, to put their children's lives at risk, to illegally travel out of their country and head to the United States to break into our country. Dear Kamala Harris, this is the root cause. The leftist, godless, globalist organizations that you support.